Hey everyone, we're here for another quick conversation for the long haul of leadership with Todd Bolsinger. We're going to look at a quote from Alan Fadling today. This is from episode 238, titled Lead with Less Anxiety. And here's what he says. He says, "What thirst of my soul," this is a question he's asking, "what thirst of my soul am I bringing to my congregation in hopes that they'll meet me there rather than learning to take the thirst of my soul to God so that God could meet me in those places? And then I could bring abundance to the community of people entrusted to me." Let me read that one more time. "What thirst of my soul am I bringing to my congregation in hopes that they'll meet me there rather than learning to take the thirst of my soul to God so that God could meet me in those places? And then I could bring abundance to the community of people entrusted to me." Todd, welcome. Hi again. What do you think about this quote? Let's unpack that.
Well, thanks, Markus. Nice to be with you again. Alan is one of my favorite commentators. I've been on his podcast. I really enjoy him. He's a very thoughtful guy who works with a lot of folks. And I want to kind of break this into two parts because I really, really agree with the first part, and I struggle a bit with the second part. So this is a kind of an interesting conversation. Let's put it this: I had a mentor say to me, "Every leader needs to know what they need." Like we all have needs. Like it's impossible to not have needs. Even Jesus had need for friends when he had communion with the Father when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? So we all have needs. The problem isn't being needy, or in Alan's great phrase, being thirsty. The problem is knowing how to legitimately get your needs met. And the problem with most of us is if we're not willing to acknowledge our needs, then we tend to unconsciously get them met illegitimately. So for one example is obvious is when I was a pastor, I was always aware that if I need my congregation to like me, like affirm approval, I can get it just by saying the right thing or being like I can get them to greet me at the door and tell me they love me. But that usually meant that I wasn't telling them the whole counsel of Scripture. Because there are times when the Scripture actually speaks in a way that it stings, and it stings us. And there are times when if I need approval from people, then it's hard for me to learn and to lead. So there's times that I just have to acknowledge I need people to approve me. I need people to know they love me and care for me. And the appropriate place for me to get that is probably in my marriage and in my friendships and in places and certainly before God. But if I have a need that I'm not willing to acknowledge, I will tend to want to get that from my congregation. And that's a problem.
Yeah. Okay. And that's a problem. Why? Especially in light of having to lead through challenging times,
Yeah.
disruptive times.
Yeah. So one of the books that I have is a book called The Mission Always Wins, and it talks about the mistake of trying to please all the stakeholders. So being a people pleaser is a great temptation for many leaders. So if I realize what I'm really responsible for is being a custodian of God's mission in this congregation, that's what it means to be a pastor and a leader. If I'm called to be the custodian of the mission, well, that might mean that not everybody's happy. And if I need to please everybody because I need approval like anybody else, but if I'm not aware of it, I will tend to fall into subconsciously trying to please people. And then you have Paul saying, do we please humans or do we please God? Like so being aware that the very most appropriate place to honestly bring all my needs or my thirsts is to God, Alan points to really beautifully.
Yeah. And that helps us stay on mission as well, right?
Yeah.
You talk about the mission always wins. If we need approval from the people in our congregation, then we're going to lean towards just making them happy instead of saying, here's where we need to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
And the great mistake is usually it's not people saying I'm not going to do the mission of God because I need to please people. It's people being unconscious about their genuine need. Like I have genuine needs for people to love me and care for me and know me, and I have needs for friendship, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if you don't get those met in appropriate places, you'll get them met in inappropriate places, like expecting everybody in your congregation to affirm you and stroke your ego and fill you up, right?
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, here's the quote one more time from Alan Fadling. He said, "What thirsts of my soul am I bringing to my congregation in hopes they'll meet me there, rather than learning to take the thirsts of my soul or the needs of my soul to God, so that God could meet me in those places. Then I could bring abundance to the community of people entrusted to me."